On a freezing roadside, a puppy was found curled around a helpless kitten, shielding her from the cold. Dozens of cars passed, ignoring their silent cries. But when one stranger finally stopped, what followed turned despair into hope, and their journey would move everyone to tears. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The wind howled across the empty road, carrying with it a biting chill that cut through the night. Snow blanketed the ground, untouched except for two small figures, huddled together near the edge of the forest. A tiny German Shepherd puppy pressed his body tightly against a shivering ginger kitten, their breaths forming faint clouds in the freezing air. Cars roared past, headlights flashing briefly over the scene before disappearing into the darkness. Not a single driver slowed down. To the world, they were invisible, just two fragile lives left to face the cold alone. The puppy whimpered, softly, but instead of moving away, he wrapped himself tighter around the kitten, his body trembling as he fought to keep her warm. The kitten's eyes fluttered half-closed, her tiny paws curled beneath her. She let out a faint meow, too weak to echo into the night. The puppy nuzzled her gently, as if urging her not to give up. In that moment, their survival depended not on the kindness of passing strangers, but on the fragile bond they had found in each other. Hope seemed distant, yet their story was only beginning. The night grew darker, and the snow fell heavier, blanketing the world in silence. Just when it seemed no one would ever notice, the faint glow of headlights approached. A red car slowed as it neared the bend, its driver squinting through the frosted windshield. Something unusual caught his eye. Two small shapes huddled at the roadside, unmoving. Curiosity overcame him. Pulling over, the man stepped out, the crunch of his boots loud against the snow. At first, he thought it was a pile of rags discarded in the cold. But then one of the shapes lifted its head, revealing a pair of pleading eyes. His heart tightened. It wasn't rags. It was life, fragile and desperate. As he drew closer, he froze in disbelief. A puppy, no older than a few weeks, sat shivering, his body wrapped protectively around a ginger kitten. The dog's eyes glistened with fear, yet determination burned within them. The kitten barely stirred, but the puppy held his ground, as though shielding her from the world. The man's breath caught. This was no ordinary sight. He realized, in that moment, that fate had led him here, for these two souls needed saving, and he was their only chance. The man crouched slowly, careful not to startle them. His breath clouded in the icy air as he stretched out a gloved hand. The puppy let out a weak growl, tiny but determined, placing himself in front of the kitten. His trembling body blocked her as if to say, "You'll have to go through me first." The sight broke the man's heart. "Easy, little one," he whispered softly, lowering his voice as though speaking to a frightened child. The puppy's legs wobbled, but he didn't back down. Instead, he pressed even closer to the kitten, his protective instinct stronger than his own fear. Slowly, the man unzipped his coat, scooping both trembling bodies into his arms. The puppy whimpered at first, but soon realized the warmth seeping from the stranger's chest. The kitten stirred weakly, curling against her companion as if she finally felt safe. Carrying them carefully, the man hurried back to his car. He wrapped them in a spare blanket, turning up the heat as high as it would go. For the first time that night, the puppy stopped growling. Instead, he let out a faint sigh, resting his head against the kitten. They were safe, for now. By the time they reached the veterinary clinic, the man's hands were stiff from holding the trembling bundle inside his coat. The vet, startled by the urgency in his voice, rushed them into the exam room. The fluorescent lights revealed the truth. Both puppy and kitten were dangerously underweight, their fur matted with frost, their bodies weak from days without food. The puppy refused to leave the kitten's side. When the vet tried to separate them for examination, the tiny dog let out a desperate whine, his paw stretching toward her. The man gently stroked his head. "It's okay, buddy. She's right. Here," he reassured. Only then did the puppy allow the vet to continue. The kitten's breathing was shallow, but her heartbeat was strong. With warm fluids, blankets, and careful feeding, hope began to flicker. The vet looked up at the man, his expression softening. "They're fragile," he said, "but with care, They'll make it. Relief washed over the man like a tide. That night, as they rested together in a heated kennel, the puppy curled protectively around the kitten once again. Even in safety, his instinct was unshakable. He would not let her go. Days turned into weeks, and the fragile pair slowly began to heal. Each morning, the man visited the clinic to check on them, greeted by tiny eyes that now carried sparks of life. The puppy's ribs, once visible beneath his fur, filled out as he gained strength. The kitten, though still small, began to purr softly whenever he nuzzled her side. The staff at the clinic marveled at their bond. They refused to be apart. If one was carried to another room, the other would cry until reunited. Mealtimes became a shared ritual. The puppy waited patiently while the kitten ate, then tucked his head against her as though guarding every bite she swallowed. One afternoon, something remarkable happened. The puppy, once too weak to move, wagged his tail for the very first time. The motion was clumsy, uncertain, but it carried the weight of hope. The kitten responded by batting at his ear playfully, her tiny paws swiping with newfound energy. For the first time, laughter filled the clinic. The man smiled through misty eyes. Against all odds, the two abandoned souls were no longer just surviving. They were beginning to live. When the clinic finally declared them strong enough to leave, the man faced a choice. He could hand them over to the shelter or keep them himself. The thought of separating them, or worse, leaving their fate uncertain, tightened his chest. He already knew the answer. They belonged with him. He prepared his home with care, laying down a small bed lined with soft blankets near the fireplace. A dish of fresh water stood beside 2 bowls filled with food. When he carried the puppy and kitten inside for the first time, they froze, their eyes wide at the unfamiliar space. But then the warmth of the fire touched their fur, and slowly they relaxed. That evening, the man watched as the puppy curled into the bed, the kitten pressed close against his chest. Their eyes fluttered shut, bodies safe and warm in a way they had never known. A lump rose in his throat. For the first time in their lives, they weren't abandoned. They were home. Weeks passed, and the transformation was nothing short of remarkable. The once shivering puppy now bounded across the yard, his tail wagging with joy, while the kitten chased after him, her tiny paws quick and playful. They had grown stronger, braver, and happier, but what hadn't changed was their unbreakable bond. Every night, they curled together in their shared bed, just as they had on that freezing roadside. Only now their sleep was peaceful. No fear, no hunger, just warmth and the comfort of belonging. The man often sat quietly by the fire, watching them, a smile tugging at his lips as he realized how far they had come.